Welcome to NTD Business. I'm Donma. Stocks rose on Monday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is seeing its longest winning streak in 6 years. Now, helping the Dow is Chevron. It rose as the oil giant posted upbeat preliminary quarterly earnings over the weekend. Investors are also awaiting Microsoft owner Alphabet Meta Platforms earnings this week, which will show whether their stocks justify their sky-high valuations. S&P 500 gained 18 points or 0.4%. NASDAQ gained 26 points or 0.2%. The Dow gained 187 points or 0.5%. Now, most of the 11 major S&P 500 sectors rose, led by a gain in energy stocks. And it's rather a big week ahead for the economy as the Fed is poised to hike interest rates yet again. And as well, new data on inflation and tech earnings could shed some light on what may come next. Here's what to look out for in the coming days.
From Washington to Wall Street to your wallet.
There's a lot on tap this week, most notably the Federal Reserve meeting and expected to raise interest rates.
After pausing in June, experts say the central bank is poised to hike interest rates by an additional quarter point Wednesday in its ongoing battle with inflation.
There's still a ways to go. Expect the Fed to underscore that message and also drive home the point that they're willing to continue raising rates in the fall if necessary, if we don't see further easing of inflation pressures.
While rate hikes are in part intended to give consumers relief by cooling inflation, they do that by making borrowing even more expensive.
For consumers, don't let up on that debt. Even if the Federal Reserve stops raising interest rates, rates are still very, very high, and they're going to be high for a while.
Also expected to move markets this week, a slew of second quarter earnings reports from major corporations.
The bulk of this year's market rally has been driven by less than 10 big tech names. And if you start to see some softness either in their earnings or their forecasts for earnings going forward, the market could see a pretty notable pullback.
The good news, although investors and economists alike are still anticipating an economic slowdown in some form, hope of a soft landing remains as the U.S. economy seeks balance in the post-pandemic era.
I think the expectation is that if we do get a recession, that it is likely to be more on the mild side.
And restaurant chains, including McDonald's and Chipotle Mexican Grill, are expected to report strong profits in the second half of 2023. This comes as commodity costs finally are easing, for example, like chicken and dairy. U.S. restaurant chains kick off their quarterly earnings this week with some top names like Starbucks and KFC parent Yum Brands set to report results next week. Investors will be keen to see how the American fast food customer is faring amid still high food prices and a pressured overall spending environment. Visits to McDonald's rose 8.4% in the second quarter. Starbucks saw a 6.9% jump and Chipotle a 15.7% increase. This is according to data from Placer.ai. And the clock is ticking for a historic strike vote that would involve thousands of UPS workers nationwide. The negotiations between UPS and Teamsters have yet to reach a deal, and the current contract expires July 31st. Here's the latest.
We've organized. We've strategized. Now it's time to pulverize.
Over the weekend, Teamsters Union General President and members speaking out at a rally in Atlanta ahead of a looming UPS strike vote. It comes after the two sides failed to reach a deal over workers' pay and benefits. If UPS workers walk off the job, the effect will be historic, the largest strike at a single company in American history. A way to stop concerned UPS customers from going to rival delivery services.
We do not get a deal. UPS has chose to strike themselves, and we will withhold our labor July 31st at 12:01 a.m. But if we get a tentative agreement subject to ratification, and we're going to recommend it, then we will not withhold our labor.
On Wednesday, UPS released a statement saying in part, we are prepared to increase our industry-leading pay and benefits, but need to work quickly to finalize a fair deal that provides certainty for our customers, our employees, and businesses across the country. On Saturday, O'Brien said 95% of the contract has been negotiated, adding that UPS knows they need to pay their members, including the part-timers.
The packages don't move unless we move them. The stuff doesn't go anywhere unless we move it.
According to a Teamsters spokesperson, negotiators from the two sides will meet up on Tuesday in Washington.
When we're talking about the health of the U.S. economy right now, we're seeing a rather mixed picture at the moment. Inflation is in fact slowing, business optimism is increasing, and that goes for consumer optimism as well. But U.S. business activity slowed to a 5-month low in July, according to closely watched survey data on Monday. S&P Global said its flash U.S. composite PMI index came in at a lower reading last month. But the data supported evidence that the U.S. economy was still growing as the third quarter began, just a little slower from the April through June period. The index tracks activity in the manufacturing and service sectors. And American Airlines agreed to raise its pilot contract offer by more than $1 billion. The airline decided to bring its offer to par with competitor United Airlines. United reached an agreement with its pilots last week that would give pilots up to a 40% raise. American Airlines' new offer reaches about $9 billion in incremental compensation and benefits. Pilots would also get pay raises and bonuses. The American Airlines CEO says they hope to ratify the agreement in August. And now on to movie news. The 1-2 punch of Barbie and Oppenheimer led the biggest weekend in 4 years. And it's the 4th biggest ever. Here's the box office numbers.
Don't move. Who are these people?
We need to get out of here.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny took 5th place with $6.7 million, giving it $159 million domestic. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 fell from 1st to 4th place, grossing $19.5 million for a domestic total of $119 million. Sound of Freedom added $20.1 million for 3rd place. It's at $125 million domestic.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, starring Cillian Murphy as the father of the atomic bomb, opened in 2nd place with $80.5 million, soaring past expectations.
Can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
It's a Barbie world. Greta Gerwig's take on the iconic doll, starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, debuted with $155 million, the biggest opening weekend of the year and the best debut ever for a female director.
The Internal Revenue Service is ending its decades-old policy of making unannounced home and business visits. The Treasury Department said in a statement that effective immediately, revenue agents will no longer make unplanned visits to taxpayers' homes and businesses. The agency will instead mail letters to people to schedule meetings. Previously, revenue officers' duties include visiting homes and firms to resolve taxpayers' liabilities by collecting unpaid taxes and unfiled tax returns. And an example of that, this year, journalist Matt Taibbi received an unannounced home visit from an IRS agent shortly after he gave testimony on Capitol Hill regarding his research into Twitter records. And finally, Elon Musk on Monday unveiled the new X logo for Twitter, replacing the famous bluebird. The big reveal came only hours after a Sunday tweet in which the billionaire said he wanted to make the change. His Twitter handle now features the new X, and so does the social network's CEO. However, the bluebird was still widely visible across the platform. The company had already changed its name to X Corp. This may perhaps reflect Musk's desire to turn Twitter into a super app or an everything app like China's WeChat, which offers payments, shopping, and other services. And here to talk to me about this is Andrew Selepak, social media professor at the University of Florida. So, Andrew, I'm dying to hear your reaction on this. Good idea or bad idea that Twitter changed its logo to X?
I think it can go either way. I mean, on the one side, it's very difficult for a brand to kind of give up this brand recognition that it's had for, 15 years now. I mean, Twitter and tweeting has become part of our natural vocabulary, and I don't think it's going to be replaced anytime soon by saying, well, I re-X'd it, I X'd, or I DM'd somebody on the X. So from the perspective of a branding, you're giving up on a lot. You're giving up on the color scheme, you're giving up on the logo, you're giving up on just part of our natural vocabulary. Flip side, there's also a lot of negatives that go along with the Twitter brand. A lot of people have a negative impression of the Twitter brand. So from a branding perspective, it can really go either way.
I mean, can you really imagine people saying X? You know, instead of saying I tweeted, can you imagine people saying I X'd something?
I re-X'd. I liked your X. Yeah, from that perspective, I think again, when you are such a part of the vocabulary, but the equivalent being sort of Google, like we don't say, did you use a search engine for that? Hey, can you Yahoo that? Can you Bing that? You know, it's did you Google it? Can I Google it? Let me go Google it. When it's part of the natural vocabulary, I mean, that's what a brand wants. And they're kind of giving up on that sort of brand recognition that it has in the sort of social media space.
So, of course, Elon Musk doesn't want Twitter to fail. So he must have some level of confidence, I would imagine. So where do you think he's coming from? Why change it? What's his motivation?
Well, I think there's two things. One, he just likes the letter X. He named his kid X. He's got a Tesla X. At one point, sort of PayPal was named, you know, just X.com. He has an infatuation with that letter. The flip side is, you know, Twitter is not the most successful social media platform. It's obviously not as successful as Facebook, as Instagram, as TikTok, YouTube. What he is most likely trying to do is change Twitter from this sort of simple micro-blogging platform and give it more options, give it more features. And in doing so, I think the rebranding is to kind of indicate that there are new features to come. What those new features will be is sort of the big question we're left with at the moment.
How has the reception been on this news?
You know, the reception's been pretty mixed. You know, if you look at a lot of mainstream media reports, they don't like it, but they often don't like Elon Musk anyhow. Jack Dorsey basically kind of came out and said that he was okay with it, despite the fact it's changing the thing that he put out there. You see some celebrities who are against it, but I think for the most part, people kind of want to just take a look and see. I mean, I was on Twitter earlier, and again, still using the term Twitter. On my phone, it still looked the same. On my desktop, that's where I saw the X. I saw the new color scheme. So there's a lot of people, if they haven't accessed it on their phone yet, they may not have noticed the change.
Do you think this will lead people to leave Twitter?
I don't think anyone's going to leave Twitter because of a new name. I think it's really going to be dependent on what these new features will be that will be added to the platform and how the platform itself may change that could lead some people to be less active or potentially leave the platform. But I don't think the name change itself will have a big impact on amount of time spent on there or people leaving the platform.
So is Elon Musk hinting that he's going to change Twitter into the everything app with this move?
Well, he's obviously seen the popularity of WeChat in China, and that's where a lot of people are saying that he's going to turn it into. I don't see that happening. I don't see it being an everything app where you're, you know, exchanging money, you know, ordering an Uber, ordering food, where you're sending private messages, where you're booking travel. We are creatures of comfort. We already have all these multiple apps for that. I don't see us really breaking that habit for this. Will there be new features added? 100%. You'll be able to exchange money, but that's something that's already kind of there. Users are paying to have their account get the little check mark next to it. So we're already giving our banking information. You have content creators who can be tipped and people can subscribe to it. So again, there's this money exchange that's already going on in the platform. And I think from that perspective, we'll see more of it. Maybe it's that you can send people money, which you technically can do. Maybe it's to make purchases. I think that's probably where a big place will be, where advertisers will want to be on the platform. And rather than you clicking on a link and going to a third-party site like an Amazon, you can purchase directly from the Twitter app. And that could be where there's a big growth area, because that would bring a lot of advertisers back to the platform if they know people can shop directly from the app.
So simply changing the name itself, is that going to do anything for advertisers?
Probably not. I think, again, people are kind of in the camp already of what they think of the platform. I don't think a new name change is going to influence how people feel about the platform, how they feel about Elon Musk or the content that they're seeing on there. I think instead it's adding these new features that companies then won't want to miss out on.
I see. What gives Elon Musk this confidence, so to speak, do you think?
Well, I mean, he's been pretty successful, whether it was PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX. This is somebody who is often, he has that sort of mentality of, run fast and break things and see what happens. And I think he's kind of doing that and has been doing that a bit with Twitter. This is just a really big thing that he is trying to change and kind of break things. Will it work out? I think, if we go by how he has performed in past ventures with all these other tech companies, I think it's a bad bet to bet against him. But I think if he is trying to really recreate a WeChat, I don't think that's going to be successful. But if it is just adding more features, making it more advertising friendly, making it to where people can exchange money for goods and services or to subscribe, maybe add a little bit more video features, a little more advertising, again, from a profitability perspective, I think that would be very successful and probably where the next moves are. 10 years down the line, could it become an everything app? 5 years down the line, maybe. But I wouldn't expect those changes by the end of the year or even into next year.
Okay, so it seems like you're saying people who didn't like Musk in the first place, this won't change their mind. They still won't like him. People who like him will still like him. But what about people on the fence? Will this, shift those people in either way?
Well, I think a lot of the people that are on the fence are sort of what we would look at as lurkers on the platform. They're not necessarily posting very often. They're just kind of consuming content, liking things here and there. And from their perspective, it's not really changing that much. They're still going to use the app in the exact same way. The name and the color scheme aren't really going to influence how they are going to continue to use the app. So I think the people who are on the fence, this really won't make a big difference to them. I think it's basically, again, the people who already don't like him, this will give them another reason not to like him. And the people that do like him will support the change because they like him. There's a bit of a, in some respects, a cult of personality to it. And, people who don't like anything he does will continue to not like this. The people who do like him will continue to like this and any other changes he makes.
Just one final question. Do you think this is going to cost Twitter a lot?
It potentially could. Again, if he really is trying to make an all-everything app, and if he is trying to model it after a WeChat, then what that's going to take is a lot of engineers, a lot of coders, a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot that needs to be built out to that. So that's a lot of cost that would go into it for an app that he's basically said is lost about half the value of what he paid for it last year. So it could be very costly depending on what it is he's really trying to accomplish with this.
All right. Thank you so much today, Andrew. Always great hearing your insight.
Thank you.